Hey, and welcome to the very first episode of Palm Sundays. I'm Nathaniel Bozolich. If you follow me on social media, you'll know that I'm an actor from the Vampire Diaries and the Originals, and I'm also an extremely passionate Jesus follower. And I'm constantly sharing what I learned from the Bible, and I'm constantly making references to Scripture and just trying to encourage people to actually dig a little bit deeper into this fascinating book. We call it the Bible. And this is the book that most Christians try to avoid or read as little as possible from my experience, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start this. I wanted to encourage, inspire, and convict, particularly Christians, but also people who might just be interested in learning something different. That this book is incredible, but it's also extremely complicated and sometimes very, very confusing and strange. Particularly the Old Testament. It is strange, and if you don't do your homework and look into context and to the style of writing, understanding, not only a historical context but a Jewish context, you will get lost, and you'll get lost very easy, and you'll also get very confused. There's also the Christians who just read the New Testament, and I feel like at the same time that's also a little bit confusing because so much of what the biblical authors are writing in the New Testament relate to the Old Testament. So if you don't understand the full story, you're kind of missing out. You're kind of jumping in really, really late. It's kind of like entering into season 5 of Vampire Diaries. You'll be confused for a very, very long time trying to work out why these characters all dislike each other. Same sort of thing. I also find this very interesting. I meet a lot of people that call themselves Christians, and they've never really read much of the Bible. Or they don't really invest a lot of time into it, so they don't really understand what that word Christian means. A lot of people even think that Jesus' last name is Christ. Oh yeah, Jesus Christ. And Christ is actually a title, and I think probably some Christians out there will know that. So there's your first tip, write that down. Jesus Christ is a title. It's actually from a Hebrew word, which is Messiah, or anointed one. But it's just interesting when I meet Christian people how little they know about the God that they say that they believe in. So a huge part of me starting this YouTube channel is to break down some barriers, to get people actually excited about the Bible, and also to give people tools to study it. And I'll hopefully try and do that. This is obviously a very introductory video because there's a lot to explain when I start off. But as the weeks go on, I'm just going to go straight into Scripture, and the people that stick around, awesome, and the people that go, nah, I'd rather watch entertainment and somebody smashing their head against the wall, you'll find those videos too. There's heaps of them out there. So the Bible, 66 different books. The Bible itself, it's actually it comes from a Latin word. It means library. So this is a collection of books, 40 different authors. This was written thousands of years ago. So although the principles do not change, the challenge for us as modern day Christians, and it's an absolute challenge, is to actually start to understand the context. You have to understand, first of all, Jewish context and historical context, what was happening at the time, what was going on. Also, just understanding the authors, who they were writing to, who was the audience, and what was happening around them. These things are key. The other thing you also have to understand is there's lots of different styles of writing, different literature. There's law, there's history, there's biography, there's prophecy, and there's poetry. So you can't just open it up and expect to treat it all the same way. You have to sort of do your due diligence, and you have to work out which book it is and what kind of book it is, and sort of start from that point. It's like a starting point, because otherwise you're going to get into this book and you're going to get very, very lost. Also, even just with the Gospels, we have 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and people often go, oh, but they're different, and this guy's saying this, and this guy's saying that. And one of the key things that I always say to people is that the Gospels are not pictures of Jesus, they're portraits. And every author is doing a portrait in a different direction, in a different light. You got Matthew, who's really making references to Jesus being the Messianic king. Then you've got Mark, and he's really referring to Jesus as the suffering servant. Luke is so much about Jesus' humanity, and John really focuses on the divinity of Jesus, why Jesus is God. So you've really got to start to understand the authors, and when you start to understand the authors, the Bible will open up and it'll start becoming a lot more alive to those who read it. From my experience, The people who have the greatest amount of faith, the Christians that are on fire for God, are the ones who invest their time and energy into understanding this book. You have to remember that a relationship with God is like a relationship with every single other person you have in your life. Friends, family, boyfriends or girlfriends. Whatever time you put in is what you're going to get back. And if you put no time into that relationship's going to be dead. So when I meet Christians and they say they rarely read their Bible, or their relationship's just kind of like a prayer and take thing, God, I need this, God, I need that. It's little wonder that you meet those people and then 12 months later you see that their faith is absolutely struggling. And it's simply because they don't know what they believe in. And I think a key element to being a Christian is to, at the very least, know what you believe in. If you want to learn more about the Bible as an overview, the guys that do the Bible Project are unbelievable. And they do these 7-minute videos about each chapter of the Bible and also specific themes, which I'll probably be referring to very often when I do these videos. But it's an amazing way to get started into the Bible. And I think it's a blueprint to, a relationship with God. If you take this book out of the equation, or you think you can do it on your own, you'll find that you'll struggle, you'll fail, and you'll make no sense of God. The other thing that I found about modern day Christianity is we've actually started to believe things that aren't biblical. And that becomes a huge problem. We've redefined God, we've redefined Jesus, and we've even redefined what this book is. Here's a newsflash. This book will not make you smarter, it will not make you richer, and it'll definitely not make you more popular. This book is not made for that. If you want to get richer, smarter, or more popular, this is not the book to read. But if you want to get wiser, if you want to grow in wisdom, this is the book that will change everything. Now, wisdom is so important because wisdom is the thing that's going to make and help you make the better decision in any circumstance that you face in your life. It's instruction to do what is wise, what is smart, what is best for the long run, what is best for others. And I think that there's so few books that actually do that. And also I think that unlike other religions and other, texts that people sort of buy into, this book really answers some of the big questions that we have in life. Where do I come from? What's my purpose? What's my value? And where do I go when I die? All those ideas are really explored in this book, and hopefully I'll be able to explore a lot of that stuff as we continue on this journey together. So that's kind of like my beginning sum up, and I wanted to kind of leave you guys with something, as it is the first episode of Palm Sundays. I'm probably going to look at this and be like, oh man, there was so much stuff I wanted to talk about, but I kind of wanted to make this like short and sweet for the first one, because I will go deep and I will talk forever, which is normal. At least now you can see that I actually really love the Bible like so much, and I get fully excited when I study it. Okay, so if you have a Bible, here's a chance. If you've never read the Bible, that's all right. We're going to work on it together. Next week I'm probably going to do and start a study of Matthew, because I think it would be awesome for people to rediscover who Jesus is. Because this is what I'm going to say, and this is true. I've met so many Christian people who have created their own Jesus. It is so easy to create your own Jesus and to create your own God. Here's the problem. When you create your own Jesus and you create your own God, and then you read this, they don't match up. And they're not going to line up, and there's going to be problems, and there's going to be contradictions. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I want to break down, is like who Jesus really is and what the Bible says Jesus really is not often what people say Jesus is. And that's like massive, and that's something that I've discovered on my journey as a Christian, and that all came from study, because I had some wild understandings of Jesus before I really started sinking into it. But he is faithful and he is good, and the Spirit, it talks to you when you really give it the time. So if you have a Bible or you just want to listen, I'm going to go through just the first Psalm. And I think it's just a really cool way to introduce you, and also just to reiterate the fact that I think studying and understanding the Bible is a key to this Christian walk, and without it you're going to get lost and you're going to go down the wrong path, and you're going to not like Christianity at all, because you're actually not going to be a part of it, and you'll just feel like it's empty and has no benefit to your life. So anyway, boom boom, here we go. Psalms, it says this. Actually, I'll read it from my computer. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. All right, so that's Psalm 1:1-2. Really easy. Now, when I'm studying, and the first thing that I pull out from this is blessed is the man, right? Now, the word blessed, I'm surely you've heard people, it's just common language now when people go, I just want to be blessed, or I feel so blessed, right? It's a word that gets thrown around a lot. And I think the problem with this word, when we immediately read this, is blessed is the man. People immediately think personal gain. They immediately think, oh, blessed is the man, the person who's going to get more, right? That's a very worldly thinking. Now, there's a biblical definition to blessing, and there's a worldly definition of blessing. The worldly definition of blessing is you're going to get everything you want. You're going to get the car, you're going to get the good job, you're going to get more famous, you're going to have all the money, you're never going to have a problem, you're going to have the perfect roommate, best girlfriend, tick all the boxes. And that's not a biblical understanding of blessing. The biblical understanding of blessing is very different. A blessing, from a biblical point of view, is anything that draws you closer to God. Anything that brings you closer into his presence, into who he is, into understanding his nature, his character, what he loves and what he hates. That's a blessing. And that's blessed is the man. When he says this, blessed is the man who's closest to God will be the following, right? And that's really, really important. Now remember, the end goal, if you're a Christian, is God, his presence. That's what we're after. So if you're looking for the religion or the spirituality that just gives you what you want, tap out right now. It's not Christianity. Christianity is not that, and you will not find that from the lips of Jesus that, hey, I'm just going to give you everything you want. There are points where Jesus says God will give you what you need, but there is a huge difference between need and want. So the first thing I acknowledge when I look at this psalm is blessed is the man who is the closest to God. And remember, Jesus says, blessed is the pure in heart, for they'll see God, right? So as we continue, who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. What I find really interesting about this, and the little things that you kind of notice, is he talks about walks, stands, and sits. Right now, you're more than likely sitting. You might be walking or possibly standing if you're making dinner in the kitchen. But at any point in the day, you're going to be doing one of those three things: walking, standing, or sitting. You know, and almost like, you know, the only time you're going to be safe is when you're sleeping. But at any one of these points, there's going to be a choice to be made. Okay, and it goes on to like the counsel of the wicked, right? Where do you get your advice from? Where does your wisdom come from? You know, think about that today. Who are you following on social media? Who's inspiring you? Who's encouraging you? Is their message good? Is their message true? You know, you see a lot of social media influencers. It seems like everybody's enlightened now. You know, everyone's got enlightenment, and the message is always the same. You got to love yourself. Self-love, 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 which I'll talk about in another episode because I don't believe in it. But you know, walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners. What do you stand for? What do you represent? If you ask yourself that question now, what do I represent? Who do I represent? Do I represent me? Do I represent money? Do I represent power? Do I represent self-love? You know, self-achievement? These are sort of questions you want to ask. And, you know, social media is fascinating. Even if we can continue to go on, who sits in the seat of scoffers? Look at the hate that gets spread around on comments and, you know, and people's feeds. It's just we become a society of scoffers. We're judging, and it's easy to throw hate on someone's page, and we love to do it. But the man who's closest to God is the one who doesn't take advice from the wicked, who doesn't walk in the way of sinners and doesn't sit in those seats of scoffers, who's sending hateful messages. And it's also interesting what Jesus says, you know, about the tongue. And what comes out of the tongue comes from the heart, right? So there's the sort of questions that you ask these people. But then we go on to the next part, and I think this is really, really interesting. So immediately in this psalm, he's creating a divide between two groups of people: those close to God and those distant from God, right? So he's basically gone, blessed is the one, this is the one who's the closest to God, who doesn't do this, this, and this. But instead, he delights in the law of the Lord. Now, as an English speaker, myself included, when I first read this, I was like, law, 613 laws in, you know, the Old Testament, the Torah. like it's like, okay, so do I just have to like memorize the law? Do I have to like know the 10 commandments off by heart? And I have to delight in that. I have to delight in that sort of understanding. What's interesting about that is I have a scriptures Bible here, which is actually a Hebrew interpretation, and it says Torah. So the word law in English is actually Torah, and Torah is interesting because you have to understand from a Jewish perspective, and this is what we often lose as Christians. When they say Torah, yes, there is legal discussions in there because there is a lot of laws, like I said, 613 laws of the Jewish people, but Torah is also the first 5 books of Moses, right? So it's not just law. Perfect. It'll be fine. I'm sure you won't even hear it. So, law is not just the law, but it's the history of God's interaction with humanity. Genesis, Exodus, there's stories there about, God pulling, the Israelites out of Egypt, pulling them out of oppression, saving them, lifting up Moses. So the law is not just like the law that we think it. I often look at that and when I read it and it says, but he who delights in the history of God's interaction with humanity. That's how I see it. And then he goes on, and on his law he meditates day and night. Now here's another thing that we need to really dig a little bit deeper, and this is why study is so amazing, especially when you get into a Jewish context. So when we get to Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible, it talks about day and night, right? And for the Jewish people, often day would represent order, and night would be chaos. And there's a difference between day and night. Now think of this from an ancient text point of view. During the day, you can see everything. If you have a village, you can see everything that's going on and you feel safe and secure because you can see to the horizon. So if your enemies are going to sneak up on you during the day, you can see them and you can defend yourself, you can prepare yourself. So there's order, there's control. You can tend to your flock, your farms during the day. There's control. You feel safe. But at night, it's a different story. At night, people can sneak up on you. At night, you have to be on your guard, and that's why you have this understanding of order and chaos. And night is so often referred to in Jewish texts as something that we're out of control, and there's that sort of chaos element that comes with it. So when I read that, and it says, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. I see that, and I see someone, blessed is the man who meditates on the Holy Scriptures, the human interaction with God since the beginning. He meditates that on the good moments and the bad, in the good and in the chaos. And that's the question you have to ask yourself, because you'll meet a lot of Christian people we all turn to God when everything's falling apart. But this psalm is saying, blessed is the man who turns to God in the good and the bad, in the sunshine and in the darkness, in the order and in the chaos, because everything is always praising and giving thanks to him. And that's why this psalm is so powerful. And also talks about meditating on his law. How often do we open up this book, study, meditate on it? And I think the psalm really is the blueprint. If you want to live a faithful life, if you want to know God more, then it all starts with this. How often am I investing in this book? So today, ask yourself this question. Where do I get my advice from? Where do I get my counsel from? Which way do I go? Who do I follow on social media? Who do I follow in life? Who are my friends? Who do I surround myself with? And what's coming out of my lips? Because those 3 questions will really tell you how blessed you are, how close you are to God. And that will be an indication of how much you understand this book. For me, it changes everything. And the good thing is I have a lifetime to study it. So my final advice to anybody who's about to begin studying the Bible, pick a book. If you start with Genesis, go all the way through. Don't just pick chapters, don't just pick verses, but commit to one book at a time and learn it and study it. So there you have it. This is the first episode. I have talked for a while. Hopefully you've learnt something interesting about Jesus or about the Bible or just in general about me. I hope this has been rewarding, and Oh man, this is the first one, and I'm going to do so many more. I don't know how often I'm going to bring them out, but I'm going to leave it at that because I've probably already taken so much time, and I could talk about the Bible like all day long. I literally can. I hope that was helpful for you guys. Have a blessed day, and I will see you soon on Palm Sunday.